Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Art of Relationship Show. Talking about Domestic Violence Awareness Month. It is October, and it is Domestic Violence Awareness. And I know nobody wants to talk about it, right? Or there's people that run rampant about domestic violence, okay? I'm not going to get into the statistical awareness that much. I'll get into it a little bit, whatever. What's more important is, what do you do to try to prevent it and also to keep yourself safe, okay? And this cuts across both men and women out there, believe it or not, right? So get ready, join the chat, throw your questions down below, people, and we're going to kick off the show right after the intro going off now, okay? So don't go anywhere, people. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Art of Relationship Show, and going to be talking about domestic violence. I know a lot of people don't want to hear about it. We've heard this all over, but it's so crucial for both men and women. And I'm going to give a different twist on it and talking about, excuse me, not so much the statistical analogies, if you will, that are out there. There's a lot of them, and you can check the stats out yourself, as well as, National Domestic Violence Awareness out there. And I'm going to throw out numbers and texts that you can call if you are in a situation where there is domestic violence present. And we're going to get into, domestic violence, emotional, mental, and of course, physical and sexual as well. A lot of people look at, just the physical elements of it, but there's a lot more to it, okay? So throw your questions out down below, people. And again, it does not have to represent, domestic violence topic that I'm going to be talking about today, okay? So please throw your questions out down below, people. Excuse me. And, I'll do the best I can to answer them. I'm your host, Greg Dudzinski. I'm a fully licensed professional counselor, relationship and sex specialist here in Detroit area, Michigan, right? Been doing this for over 23 years professionally, and I do have a lot of experience as well with domestic violence. I do as well, but with I had a brain fart with trauma and grief as well. I've worked with a lot of kids a long time as well over the years. I don't work with kids or teens any longer, but I have a lot of experience with severe trauma, kids, teens, and adults as well. Worked with talking about, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. A lot of experience, working with rape survivors as well. And I am forever grateful, forever flattered to be able to, try to help women in that horrific situation, okay? So once we get everything going, want to get as many people involved as possible, I'm going to throw out the domestic violence numbers and text down below, okay? You can, text just the word START to 88788, and also you can call the number 800-799-SAFE, which is 7233. 800-799-SAFE, okay? And those numbers are down below as well, and I'm going to leave them on the TikTok, and I'll pull them up periodically as well, okay? So domestic violence, like I said, I'm not going to get too much into the stats. You can do that National Domestic Violence Awareness hotline, and those are the numbers that I gave below. But, typically 1 in 3 women and 1 in 10 men endure. They're the victims of domestic violence, okay? So in the United States, I'm going to key in on United States. The evidence is even higher in other countries throughout the world, okay? So domestic violence, of course, can cover, most people hit on the physical altercations, the physical domestic violence, but there's emotional, there's mental, and there's sexual aspects, right? And a lot of people will look at, what do we do? You need to go, you need to leave, you need to get the hell out. Great, terrific, right? Even professionals will promote this. And I tell people, now what happens if, you go get a hold of these numbers, try to get a hold of a women's shelter or men's shelter or domestic violence shelter in your area, and okay, I'm leaving, I'm going to go, I got the kids, and the domestic violence shelter, men's, women's shelters are full. What the hell do you do? Maybe even if you get a car and you run out of gas and all of a sudden you don't have money, and now what do you do? So this is where I want people to be smart and wise, to look at, it's horrific. I don't want somebody getting hurt. I do not want somebody getting killed, okay? And a lot of, like I mentioned, 1 in 10 men are, the victims of domestic violence. I think those numbers are higher, but I think a lot of men still, we are embarrassed to report to, I'm a man, I shouldn't have to let my woman go to jail or that type of situation. So I think the stats are very biased, and I think also with women as well, they might be low and misrepresented as well because of the embarrassment, the shame, maybe the guilt, right? Oh, it's my fault I got hit. It's my fault she did this to me. It's my fault. You get me? And I tell people all the time, and that's the mental play, the guilt trips that we run into people throughout our lives. I get this. Well, I can't break up the family. What would that do to our kids? What would that do to our family? But I'm also looking at, what does it do to your family staying in a situation where there is, domestic violence, right? And people look at, I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I'm going to go there. There are unusual circumstances where maybe one person, she pushed him, he pushed her. You know what? That is not the norm. It's an isolated incident. It should never happen, but those can be, be healed and fixed and make sure they don't happen again. Got me? But there's sometimes where we have to look at it, is it more a chronic situation? Does it happen more than once? Again, it should never happen at all, but does it happen more often, more frequently, getting pushed, getting hit? And again, the name calling can also be viewed as domestic violence or abuse that's going on in those situations. Okay, name calling, belittling, degrading, and you can imagine names, right? You rotten mother, baby, you're a whore, you're this, you're that. You say, you're not a man, you're a little kid, you're a little boy, you no dick mother, you get me. So there's a lot of stuff going on that constitutes as far as verbal, emotional, mental domestic violence as well, okay? Sexual domestic violence, we're going to get into, right? It could be groping. It could be, where it's non-consensual touching. Yes, even being married, you can rape your partner, okay? There's old school, and there's people out there, and I'm not even going to get on this political dilemma aspect, but there's still people out there that believe, oh, you're married, there's no such thing as rape in a marriage. There is, okay? And I'm going to be real. I'm going to be honest with you. And I tell people, I don't bullshit anybody. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to make stuff up. But there are people out there that are a-holes, let's be real, that still believe there is no such thing as rape in a marriage. And there is, okay? It's any sexual activity that is non-consensual. You get me? It could be overly groping. It could be forcing. It could be coercion, is considered domestic violence on a sexual realm. So we already talked about, the verbal aspect, name calling, belittling. And yes, it happens on both. And like I said, I know men, domestic violence, being the victims, are way underrepresented. The stats are a lot less because it goes a lot less it gets underreported as I trip over my tongue, okay? Hey, Valerie, what's going on? Jenny, what's happening? I appreciate everybody tuning in. So throw your questions, throw your comments down below. And I know a lot of people look at, what even causes domestic violence, right? We could look at everybody, is it learned behavior from family? Did you come from a a family where maybe you had a mom that would beat the crap out of dad, or dad beat the crap out of mom. Is it learned behavior, that type of thing? Is it genetic predisposition? Is there a situation to where it is, there's anger issues and it's genetic, okay? So that type of situation, okay? And these are situations that I look at how many people look at all these attitudes, and to be able to look at, what has happened, whatever. And there's people on, the TikTok and everything that always look in the situation that derogatory remarks. What's in your coffee? Actually, it's black coffee. That's it. See? Stop hate. Love intentionally. What I promote out there. That's why I'm doing domestic violence, right? So those type of situations, they look at, oh, you know what? Isolated things happen. I said that, right? It happens. A one and be done. Never should happen again, right? It should never happen once. But then we look at if it's chronic, if it's happening on a regular basis, what are you doing to get out of that situation if your partner's not getting help? Because a lot of people, they look at, and I said this before, right? Oh, well, I'm not going to break up the family. But it's teaching your kids, let's be real, it's teaching your kids to tolerate being in a domestic violence relationship, that's okay, that should be tolerated, or, let's face it, or you're going to be the perpetrator and it's okay to hit, belittle, demean, be, the perpetrator in a domestic violence situation, okay? So again, check below, people, if you want to, if you are in a domestic violence situation, my heart goes out to you. But that's where I want you to, you can text START to 88788 or call 800-799-SAFE, which is 7233. Now, a lot of people and relatives, I'm going to get into the reality about it, even professional aspects, okay? I touched on this a bit a couple minutes ago, where a lot of people will look at, get out, hurry up, get out, grab the kids, get out of that situation, right? And the shelters are full. You have no relatives around, no friends that are willing to help because maybe you're isolated, you're embarrassed, you don't want to go around anybody because of that environment, right? You don't want to look like you're weak, or we can't. The embarrassment of domestic violence cuts deep, okay? So I get it, and I understand that, but that's where I want people to look at. If you don't have any friends, the numbers, like I said, they're in the banner down below, people, and I, read them off, to call and try to get help. But again, a lot of people just, might leave their home, grab the kids, leave that situation. Intentions are great. But then we have to look at what happens if you have no money, there's no friends, no family around to help you, and the shelters, domestic violence shelters, men's shelters are full. Now what do? I'm a realist, okay? I want to stack the deck in your favor to help get you out of that situation. And, we could go, let's face it, murder, suicides, it's a real thing. And I don't want anything to happen to anybody. And can we predict that? Not necessarily, but we try to stack the deck in your favor, where if it's a chronic situation, what are you doing to get in a safe place? And we know, and talking with a lot of first responders, a lot of cops, police, that type of situation, domestic violence situations are the worst calls to get, okay? Because, charges got dropped, or, and they keep getting called back 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times, and nothing happens. Years ago, the state of Michigan, which I'm in now, I've always been in the state of Michigan here in Metro Detroit, but the state of Michigan got to the situation to where the element be able to look at passed a law where domestic violence situation, one person is going to go to jail, okay? And because the police, and I get it, they got sick and tired of going, and then the one don't press charges, so the state jumps in and press charges, okay? Is that a good thing, bad thing, whatever? It's going after the situation to where trying to eliminate those situations where it's a rinse and repeat element and situation type going on, okay? So, shelters are full, that type of situation. Oh, what the hell happened? I don't want to end live. I'm trying to figure out what the heck happened to my TikTok. There we go. A light or flash went on. Sorry, TikTok people. Sorry about that. So, so that's where my advice is. You call National Domestic Violence Hotline. You can try to call the police. Everybody talks about a PPO order against them, and we've seen it just recently in a hospital in Metro Detroit, where some judges, oh, no, I'm not messing with the PPO, whatever. And a PPO is a piece of paper. It's a step. I want you to protect yourself. But if a person doesn't want to listen or, they don't want to abide by a PPO, that type of situation. So it's scary out there for a lot of people in this situation. Everybody assumes that, men are the perpetrators, but there's some evil, some real wicked, violent women out there as well. And it's even more embarrassing for a lot of us men out there, okay? These are situations. Now, what do you do to protect yourself? The only thing you do is try to call the police, right? You try to call the authorities situation, but are you willing to follow through? And it's hard when you have no money and you have, bills to pay. And what do you do with the kids? And, maybe changing schools, that type of situation. I tell everybody, I'm a realist. Now what do we do to stack the deck in your favor? And that's where the National Domestic Violence Hotline can help and send resources in your area. And, again, throw the numbers down below. So, and are there evidence? Because someone might have, they might yell, might have anger a little bit, that doesn't necessarily mean it's domestic violence, right? Now, if it continues and it turns into name-calling, belittling, that type of situation, it is going to be a domestic violence situation. Like I said, isolated incidences happen. We're human, we're life. I don't excuse them, don't condone them, not at all. But we look at what can be done so they don't happen again, right? And I think there's a difference, a huge difference between an isolated issue versus this is happening time and time again. How much is time and time again, right? If it happens, more than once, I think it's an issue and it needs to be addressed. Is that person that has the issue, say anger issues, right? Are they seeking help? Are they seeking resources, maybe anger management, therapy, counseling, that type of situation? Are they willing to get help to take care of that issue or try to resolve and heal that issue in what's going on, anger type of situations? We could get into, if there's mental health challenges that are getting in the way, are they willing to get the help? And if they're not, then what is allowing you to stay in that environment? And it's scary. I already said that. You might not have money. You might not have that situations. And domestic violence does happen, and let's face it, in undereducated areas, in other nations, whatever, but they tend to be a lot higher in undereducated populations here in the U.S., right? So, tend to be lower education, no awareness of the resources that are available, and there's that self-fulfilling prophecy out there that, hey, this is how life is. My mom went through this, so it's what I have to do. No, it is not what you have to do. And I know in a lot more rural communities, a lot more, we'll just say rural isolated communities, it might be looked more frowned upon because it's almost like a cult mentality, if you will, that you're just supposed to deal with it, just supposed to, put up with it. Oh, you got married for better or worse. No, you don't have to tolerate that. You don't have to be in an abusive situation. Not at all. And now the thing is, what do you do and what do you go for resources? And that's when, I suggest domestic violence awareness call. See if they have openings. See what resources can be in place And I know it can be a pain in the ass. It can be scary. And what do you do to try to set yourself up and plan to be able to get to a safer place, right? File from divorce. Do you file for divorce? Do you file, the custody situations? And it's scary doing with that because you don't want any harm coming to the kids. I tell people, I'm a realist, okay? You do this, do that, everything will be hunky-dory. I tell people these are things stacking the deck in your favor, and to try to be prepared and try to be making awareness out there so you can protect yourself and protect your kids. And this goes for both men and women victims of domestic violence, okay? I want to hear some comments down below. And do you look at, with domestic violence, of course, most of domestic violence, be it, like I said, sexual, be, emotional, mental, those type of situations happen mostly in intimate relationships, okay? Romantic relationship, partnerships, typically that's where they happen. Or one person is trying to break up or divorce the other one, and the anger and escalates, and it's over a control type situation, right? And that's where you have to look at, okay, if I want to be out of this relationship, does my partner have a predisposition to anger, rage, that type of situation? Are they violent? Do they throw things? Do they make threats? And a lot of people, I threat, but I never promise. You have to take those threats seriously because possibly they could happen. And that's where I want people to protect themselves, both men, women, that type of situation, okay? So what do you do to try to keep yourself safe? You look at signs, right? You look at, is this a characteristic of this person? Do they punch walls? Do they punch doors? Do they throw things? Do they go on rage tangents? And this goes for both men and women, people. And those that have been in domestic violence situations, I have helped many over the years. When I say many, I'm talking over 1,000 in domestic violence situations, and I still help individuals with domestic violence situations. And they're horrific, they're challenging, especially if that individual has no help around. Help meaning, family or friend or even coworker situation. Because some people, let's face it, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to get myself in trouble. And I get it. It's scary. And this is where, what do you do to help promote yourself and promote, that self-awareness, that confidence within yourself when literally it could be getting beat out of you. It could be verbally, getting beat out of you. How do you do that? And it's part of, number one, realizing I don't deserve this. No matter what, I don't deserve getting hit, getting demoralized, getting mentally abused, ripped apart, verbally abused, those type of situations. It's even realizing I don't deserve this. No one's perfect. You don't deserve that situation. You don't deserve to be in that environment. And now what do I do to try to plan and be safe to move on, to be able to trigger that element that I'm not going to, remain in this situation. And there's a lot of times where you look at, like I said, isolated, never happens again, great, you happy, connected, work on those things. But if that individual doesn't, and let's look at the rinse and repeat situations that I deal with on a constant basis, okay? It could be cheating. It could be, physical altercation. It could be the belittling, the name calling on a daily or every other day basis. Oh, I won't do it again. Oh, Greg, he said he won't do it again. She said she'll stop. Great, awesome, terrific. How many times has this happened? 2, 3, 5, 10? I've heard this a lot. And it's not what that person, and they could bleeding heart, oh, I won't do it again. I'm so sorry. And then it happens again. I'm so sorry, bleeding heart, it won't happen again. And it happens again. So it's not just lip service. And I know a lot of people out there get pulled on their heartstrings. He or she promised they would never ever do this again. I get that. But I'm looking at what behaviors are in place to back up, excuse me, to back up that lip service. What behaviors, what actions are taking place to prove they are not going to do that again and get help. It's not just lip service, okay? And then you look at what makes me stay in that situation when it's been a rinse and repeat. They've told me numerous times they won't do it again, and they did. And I get that. The kids, money issues, financial issues, the embarrassments. I get all that, but I also look at, is it embarrassing to remain in that situation and be tolerated that way? To be in a domestic violence situation. And it's horrific. In domestic violence situation, the mental health aspect, right? It can, not always, but it can create PTSD, right? It could create, chronic stress disorder. It can create chronic PTSD, or complex I can't even talk. Chronic, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. There we go. So those situations, it can create depression, definitely anxiety. How do you sleep in a situation where you feel, you're going to be berated, be ripped apart in a domestic violence situation, that it's physical? Your partner's going to come home maybe drunk, be pissed, they had a bad day, and you don't know if they're going to take it out on you. So how can you ever be at peace and at rest in that situation? You're always going to be on alert situations, and we can look at, our parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system. It's always popping, right? You're always on edge, and you wonder why you're fatigued, tired. Fibromyalgia might start kicking in if it's long-lasting enough in the nerve endings and the body aches and pains, those type of situations. You will never be at rest, okay? So number one, what is keeping you in that situation? I know you want to believe your partner. I get it. You love them. You love her. You love him. But my question is, do they deserve your love? And getting beat down so often, so frequently, that you feel like everything you do is, it's wrong. It's your fault they hit you. It's your wrong fault they called you names. It isn't. Now, we have a right? We can tick our partner off. That doesn't give them a right to hit us, demoralize us, beat us, call us names. You get me? Those are situations that there's no excuse for. We can understand, but they need to get help, and are they willing to do it? Like I said, is there proof to back up their words that they are working on fixing that issue? And it's not talking about after the 10th, 20th time. We're looking at what are they doing to get help in that situation, and are you holding them accountable? Are they holding themselves accountable? Are they seeking help? Are they seeking counseling? Do you have proof that they're seeking counseling? You get me? That you want to see receipts. Well, I can't believe you because you said you're going to stop and you didn't, so why would I believe you now? And then they flip out again, calling you, I can't believe this, and they demoralize you, belittle you. Well, that tells me right there, the help you're getting, you're either lying or it's not working. Which one is it, or is it both? Or is this a personality issue that they might not ever get help with or might not ever be able to fix and heal? My question is, it's not your job to fix that, it's theirs. I want you in a safe place, and I want your kids in a safe place. And this goes for, domestic violence, victims, men, women, that type of situation, okay? So, being able to look at, we know, a lot of underserved populations, right? They tend to be, more poor, more economic stressed, if you will, that are in domestic violence, more apt to be in domestic violence situation. We know those with less education tend to be more in domestic violence situations as well. We know all this stuff. But the question is, what do? We try to educate ourselves. We try to look at, what do I do if I feel or think I'm in an abusive situation, and to be able to look in, that type of element. Hey, Tiffany, what's going on? What's happening? And, when that starts happening and it's chronic, we have to look at, what am I teaching our kids? What am I teaching myself? And, you know what? If I had my twin, if we had a twin, mirroring, what would they say to us if we were in this situation? Now, what do we do to get out of it? Do we have to find a job? Say you're not working and you're a stay-at-home parent, a stay-at-home dad, stay-at-home mom, and you're chronically abused in a domestic violence situation, and nothing's changing, it's not stopping, and you're trapped. Let's be real. You have no family, no friends. Financially, what do you do in that situation? And like I said, there are organizations, and I still have the ticker down below. You can text START to 88788 or call 799-7233 down below to the National Domestic Violence Helpline. There are groups, and I know resources always ebb and flow and can be limited, but you need to be resources. And like I said, hurrying up, getting the hell away might not be the situation. Like I said, if the domestic violence shelters are full, you have no money, no family, no friends, what do? And now you're maybe forced to go back in that situation because you have no money for hotels. They're expensive. So, now I have to go back. And now it's even worse than what it was before. You get me? And now, did you teach yourself, well, it's worse now, so I guess I can't ever leave again? I get it. I told people I'm a realist. I look at the reality of what happens in domestic violence situations, and what do we do to stack the deck in our favor? Yeah, do you call the police, call the authorities, but then what happens next, right? Do you file the PPO, restraining order, those type of situations? And, what do you do to maintain that sense of safety and that sense of security, that type of situation? And I'm not trying to be a jerk or whatever, but I'm going to be honest with a lot of people out there. If you are maintaining a domestic violence environment for your kids, you're living in it, okay? And you maintain that you're in that domestic violence situation, year, 2 years, 10 years, whatever. There's a lot of judges out there that are going to look at, well, that's neglect on your part, and maybe you don't deserve to have custody of your kids because you kept them in that environment. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm being real. I've dealt with a lot of this over the years with domestic violence situations. I've been dealing with this for years, and judges telling mothers, telling fathers, then maybe you don't deserve your kids either because you kept them in that environment. And it's harsh, but is there some truth to that? Maybe, right? Maybe there is some truth. And I get that. It's not easy. And what do you do to try to stack the deck in your favor and to learn to gather the resources out there to be able to put yourself in a position where you can get to a safer place if your partner is not willing to work on it, if your partner is just ignoring it and nothing changes? You need to be able to get to a safe environment. No, it's not easy, especially if your self-worth, self-esteem is in the toilet. You're looking at, even if you empower yourself, what am I doing? Why do I deserve this? I want to know, why does your partner deserve you to be in their life if they are abusive to you, okay? Why do they deserve your love? Why do they deserve your attention? And a lot of people, I've heard it over and over and over again, all the excuses. Well, she's a good mom. He's a good dad. He pays all the bills. She cleans the house. I hear all this stuff, But does that excuse to be abused? No, it doesn't. And a lot of people, I get the fear, the insecurities, right? They don't even want to question it. So they try to pick and choose and look at the positives. I'm all about positives. But then you have to look at the reality. Because they do this does not justify you being in an abusive situation, okay? So tell your friends, have numbers ready, text 88788, text START to that number, or call 800-799-7233. It's a National Domestic Violence Hotlines, and they should be able to provide resources, or at least get you pointed in the right direction to resources around your neighborhood, your state, your county, your city, okay? And like I said, that's down below. But also, check out my website, theartofrelationships.org, people. I know it's not a happy, I'm usually joking around, playful, but I know domestic violence is definitely nothing to joke around about. And you have to look at, because you did not get your way, does not mean you were abused or you're in a domestic violence situation. There's a lot of people, which ruins it for a lot of people out there. They will portray, they will lie, and they will embellish that they're being abused or in a domestic violence situation, and they're not, just simply because they weren't able to get a pair of shoes they wanted, or they didn't get their way on a decision, that type of situation. So we have to look at the actual parameters of, what is disrespect, what is domestic violence, what is abuse, versus, you just were told no one time. You get me? So I want people to be aware. Keep those numbers handy. And again, check out my website, theartofrelationships.org, and follow me, like me, all over social media at LoveGuruGreg. TikTok, you can check out. I probably have 600 videos, other episodes of the Art of Relationships show there, and that's the easiest place to check it out, okay? Everybody, take care. Help everybody out, and let's promote peace and love to everybody else out there, okay? Keep lending listening ear to friends, family member out there in need. Peace and love. Take care. Bye-bye.